Wow. Okay, 1 week down. I don't even know how many left to go, but this is a good start, I'd say. Just the fact that I'm uploading daily again for the first time in so many years is something that I'm pretty proud of. And again, obviously it remains to be seen if I can keep up with this, but things are looking pretty good so far, barring some horrible tragedy or accident or me screwing something up badly. We should be good to go at least for a little while, and that is exciting to me. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I hope it's been intriguing to you. Obviously, the games that we played are a little bit on the niche side, but don't worry, we'll get around to some more mainstream, more far-reaching games as we continue to go, as well as some weird stuff that might attract your attention, some cult classics that people have heard of. Basically, everything's on the table now, but we'll talk about that more in this video. Today, I'm going to be doing something... I was going to call it an update video, but I guess it's more of like a heart-to-heart because I have so many things to discuss in today's video. It's going to be a really long one. You can probably already tell based on the time of the video. So treat this like a podcast if you must. Minimize the video. Turn off your phone if you have YouTube Premium and just listen to it that way. Something like that. I am going to put gameplay up, obviously, just to kind of fill in the void, but it's not going to be anything of substance. It's probably just going to be me playing my normal games that I've been playing for the past couple of weeks and just hitting record while I do so. So it's just to kind of fill the void and to make this more of a proper video rather than me just speaking into the ether. And so there's actually some ambiance going on in the background. But yeah, lots to talk about. And this is more than just stuff coming up on the channel, things like that. I just have so many things I need to get off my chest for today's video, and if I do more videos like this in the future, which I would kind of like to actually, they probably won't be as involved or as long as this either, just because there's a lot of past things that I need to address that dates back pretty much as far as like 2018 in regards to just a lot of things, and I have a whole list here that I'm going to go over. None of this is scripted, obviously, if you couldn't already tell from my cadence and the way I'm tripping over my words already and the fact that it sounds like I'm rambling, but that's what I'm here to do. So let's start by going into the past. Let's start by talking about probably the most uncomfortable topic of this video. I'll put timestamps, by the way, in the description, so if you want to jump around and not listen to certain aspects or parts of this video, go right ahead. I'll make that easier for you. But I want to start kind of more than anything addressing the people that have followed this channel the longest, as well as people that have even known me personally and have talked to me through various socials and interactions and whatnot. You're the people I want to talk to first, and I don't know fully how to tackle this, but I guess we'll just get started. It's no secret that pretty much since the middle of 2018, I have been very impersonal and detached, both on my channel as well as my socials. And when I say socials, I really just mean my Twitter account that I've been using for the past 11 years that's tied to this channel. Back in 2018, I did a full tweet wipe on that account, and basically only left YouTube video links on there. And then since then, all I have done on that Twitter account is I have a bot that auto-posts the videos, although it's incredibly late on posting the videos. I occasionally talk about, just briefly say, hey, here's an update to things that are going on, but this isn't enough information that I need to make a whole video about it. Or sometimes if I'm like about to miss a regularly scheduled upload, I go like, hey, there's no video today, but I'll get the next one, I promise. That's really all I've used that Twitter for the past few years. This last year was kind of an exception because I also talked about some backlog games, but I'll get into all that a little bit later. For the most part, though, really haven't used that Twitter all that much, and to an extent, it has bled into this channel because since then, I've pretty much only done nothing but Let's Plays. I've made a couple of side projects here and there, but most of those petered out pretty quickly. And I honestly do updates less than ever as well. I don't really just sit down and be like, all right, here's the situation nearly as often, especially in this last year. It all kind of came to a head in 2020 where I sort of gave myself a soft break while not completely killing the channel and keeping at least one Let's Play going so that there was still something there to make the YouTube algorithm happy so that my channel doesn't completely vanished into the ether. But I might as well talk about that and why things have been that way for the past few years and why I'm changing things now. Long and short of it, honestly, is just the fact that the internet is kind of a cruddy place. That's no secret to anybody, and especially on social media, it is incredibly toxic. I mean, Twitter is like arguably one of the worst places for toxicity on the internet, and a lot of that has to do with its very design, the way it simply works. Twitter is, as a website, meant to be nothing but sensationalist newspaper headlines to generate engagement. and that it pretty much trains people who use the website to talk in that way and just try to come up with something that will give them the most likes and retweets. And so a lot of times that requires divorcing context from things and taking out nuance and not going into detail on certain stuff, which causes a lot of problems and fosters a lot of negativity. It makes a lot of people jump the gun and make assumptions and get upset with one another. And people just slowly, I mean, especially with the way that website has progressed over the years, and more than ever, I feel like we have lost so much humanity on that website where everybody just treats each other like they're the worst people on earth. Or not even people. They treat each other like they're subhuman. And it's so impossible to have normal conversations with anyone outside of a specific circle. I mean, or even going into other people's circles. I think that's the thing I hate the most about social media, is that it does really reinforce the idea of echo chambers. It allows people to very specifically curate the things and the opinions that they want to see. But the problem is it's a public website. So people will constantly be surrounded by things that validate them and make sure that, you know, they're never upset and they're constantly in their safe spaces. But due to the fact that it's a public forum, it's a place where everyone can talk with everybody, especially in comments threads and reply threads from larger tweets. Whenever somebody sees an opinion that doesn't necessarily jive with theirs, they get so furious and so upset, and it causes just constant meltdowns over the smallest and simplest things. I mean, again, and people just, they don't treat each other like people. They treat each other like I've seen people road rage with more politeness and decorum than I've seen people behave on Twitter. And a lot of that's just, you know, due to the fact that the internet is the internet and everyone acts like they're invincible and nobody can touch them, which is, for the most part, very true. It's not really often that somebody is going to go out of their way to harm you over something you said over the internet. That's a very rare thing. But that feeling of invincibility allows and enables people to act as viciously and nasty as possible. And gosh, that just doesn't do wonders for your mental health to sulk and wallow in that all day and to see that kind of stuff. Now, that's not to say I don't still use Twitter. I absolutely do, but I use it in a very different way that allows me to not see that stuff nearly as often as I used to. Nowadays, I basically just use it as an instant messenger to talk with some of my friends. I use it as an alternative to Discord, because Discord is, you kind of have to have people in an actual server to talk with all of them. So if you have, let's say you have friends that don't jive with one another, you can't have them all in the same server, so then you'd have to message them. But on Twitter, it allows you to be a part of multiple different groups while still engaging with all of those different groups in, again, a very public setting, while also talking and just openly and getting opinions from all different sides and things like that. That's pretty much the best thing about Twitter, is that its openness, but it's also the worst thing about Twitter is its openness. And I use it kind of as an open-ended instant messenger now. That's pretty much it. And also to get a lot of my news and from specific accounts that I follow for very specific reasons, mostly my gaming news and whatnot. So I do still use it, but I don't plan on ever going back to or using it the way that I used to, because, again, I don't want to wallow in that negativity anymore, especially when that website has gotten so much worse over the years. And I want to make it clear, I'm not some boomer who thinks Twitter bad, social media bad. I mean, they are, but it's so much more complicated than just saying social media bad. And even Twitter, for the problems that it causes, you take away Twitter, those people are just going to find somewhere else to be as, or almost at least as nearly as nasty as they always are on somewhere else. I mean, I use Reddit too, and Reddit's no better. But at least there, your homepage, you can very, very easily curate things to a very niche degree, almost more so than you can with Twitter, without being bombarded by promoted tweets or trending topics that will absolutely ruin your day. And, yeah, I digress. Essentially, I don't plan on using Twitter like that ever again. And that, again, like I said, that attitude is kind of bled over into YouTube, which is its own problem. But I want to take the time right now to just set the record straight and leave my door open for all of you, so you have some way of contacting me or talking to me if you ever want to. I have never, and it's never been my intention to tell anybody to go screw themselves or be like, hey, I know that we've been talking for all this time, but now I want nothing to do with you. No, that's not at all the case. Partly, I do have a very out of sight, out of mind personality. That's just the way I've kind of always been, and I never have been that way to offend people. It's just kind of the way my brain works, unfortunately, and it gets me in trouble all the time, and I apologize for that. But again, the other things that I've mentioned as well. I want to post two socials, and I'm going to put them in the description. One is my Twitter, and I want to make it clear that even though I don't use that Twitter very much, my notifications are all on that Twitter. My mentions, my messages, they are completely open. you ever want to talk to me, just go right ahead and I will jump right in there, at least as quickly as, one, I'm able to, and two, Twitter's notifications will let me, because sometimes they just flat out don't work. I think anybody who uses the app knows that it has that problem, but my messages are always open. You ever send me a direct message, I will always get back to you as quickly as I can. And I'm not logged out of my Twitter or anything. I don't stay off of it. It's always on hand. I just don't use it. And my other thing I want to post in there is actually in my Discord. Feel free to add me on Discord. Don't feel free to add me to Discord servers, though, because I'm probably not going to accept that. But feel free to add me on Discord if you ever want to talk to me directly. Go right ahead. I don't join any server, mostly just due to notification spam, because Discord has that issue. And just because, again, I don't want to be in large groups where people have a certain... I don't want to be in echo chambers, and Discord servers are ripe for that. Even if you don't necessarily see it as an echo chamber, it's very possible that it is one, and that's just not a place that I ever want to be. So directly message me there. Absolutely. We can talk. We can, it doesn't matter who you are. I'm leaving the door open for anybody who watches this video. Go right ahead. The only way I'm probably going to reject you or block you is if you, like, spam me or anything like that. But for the most part, my door is open. Feel free to talk to me. And yeah, okay, I think that's the most uncomfortable part of the video out of the way. Although, I mean, again, I do want to say, I want to do better. I want to be better at fostering engagement around here. I know I've always been kind of crap at it, and a lot of that just has to do with me worrying about constantly overcompensating, or I guess undercompensating for the fact that I think I'm overcompensating when I'm not really. I've never been the kind of person who's like, I'm going to go all out with engagement. I want people to completely dictate everything I do in this channel. Obviously, that's never been my strategy here, because I've had a very single-minded approach to this channel. And granted, I am going to change some things, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do want to get you guys more involved. I want you guys to be more a part of this. And as kind of a show of goodwill, I want to break a rule that I have had on this channel for a very long time. And this will obviously make more sense when I get into talking about the series that I'm starting on this channel. But I want to break a rule that has never really been set in stone. But I think when people, a couple times when people have like requested that I do a certain game, I just go, sorry, I don't do requests. That is changing. Now I am going to do requests. But the reason that I wasn't doing it before is because Let's Plays were always a very personal me thing. I only ever Let's Played games that I had a personal connection with and knew a lot about, and requests were they just didn't make sense because, it was a total crapshoot. 99% of the time when someone requests a game, they're not going to know if I have any prior experience with it. Therefore, there was just no point in me hoping that somebody would request something like that. It's just not going to happen. And if they request a game that, they personally like, what am I supposed to do with that, based on the nature of the types of videos I've been making. But now that things are different, and now that the door is pretty much open to almost any video game out there, there are some exceptions, and we'll get into that later. I am now actively encouraging that you put out requests. Please name a game. If you want me to play it on this channel, by all means, you can even put it in the comments of this very video. I will add it to the list. I actually have a pretty massive list of games that I am currently working on. This is just the start of things, to come. I have this massive collection of games that I have so much access to. I mean, basically, as long as it's not a brand new $70 AAA release, like you're not expecting me to instantly go out and drop $70 to play a game that just released. As long as it's not that, I am pretty much open to covering anything on the channel, at least to an extent. And again, we'll explain how that's going to work a little bit later, but feel free. Go ahead, please. I welcome it now. So that's my show, I guess, of good faith in regards to engagement. And these videos, these monthly videos that I would like to make, something like this, I'm going to try to use those more as opportunities to get in touch with you guys. As far as, like, other more involved things, like giveaways and stuff like that, that's just never been something that I have been able to do. I don't really have the means for something like that as much as I wish I did. Remember that, and I have to remind people of this a lot, this YouTube channel is a hobby. I do this entirely with my own free time, with my own money. I don't ever get paid for this. I think I'll be completely honest with you guys. And I don't know if like YouTube's going to get in a bind over this, but I will. In the 11 years that I have been making YouTube videos, you want to know how much money that YouTube directly has sent me for doing all of this? $400. $400 over the course of 11 years. Okay, so really think about that for a second. I mean, what is that? 11 years? That's almost $3 a month. That is my revenue stream on this YouTube channel. It means nothing. At the most, I have probably used all of that money to like fill my car up. I work a 50-hour-a-week job. I have a social life that I have to take care of, friends and family. I have other adult responsibilities I have to work on, and then, you know, just other sorts of video games. And there's so many other things going on in my life that this is completely what I do with my free time that I have divorced from everything else that's going on in my life. You have to understand that. So, no, I cannot do a lot of the things that a lot of other much more successful YouTubers are known for doing when it comes to engagement. Trust me, I would like to do more. I would love to do these contests and giveaways and all sorts of things. I would, even streaming too. That's another thing people ask me about a lot. Don't get me wrong, streaming has never been my forte, and it's not something I'm the most comfortable with. I tried it for a bit and didn't really enjoy it. But if I had the time, like if this was my job, I would do it. I would do streaming on the side, absolutely, just as an aside to this YouTube channel. I promise you I would, but there is just absolutely no way that I can also squeeze that in, especially with the fact that my schedule is so erratic. I mean, I make most of my videos at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night on weekdays. Like, that'd be a horrible time to stream videos and whatnot. And again, it would completely rob me of all my time to make these videos. So I would love to do more, but it's just not humanly possible while trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle and a full-time job. But on the topic of engagement, one last thing I want to just quickly address is comments on my videos, YouTube comments. Some of you may have noticed this, and I guess if you haven't noticed this, I'm at least bringing it to your attention and being completely honest about it. But for the past little while, I have had comments set to in need of approval before they actually go live. I just want to be very clear that this has nothing to do with harassment. This has nothing to do with vetting your guys' comments. This is entirely due to bot spam. About 1 in every 20 to 30 videos that I post, within the first hour of a video going live, some bots will spam my comment sections with a bunch of URLs and links and whatnot, most of which will lead to stuff that will give you viruses or porn sites or things like that. And that is essentially the only reason. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't want to post a video and then someone to come and check it, and due to the fact that I don't get a lot of comments on my videos, see a bunch of URLs below, and especially if, you know, if it's somebody that's younger that comes and clicks on these videos, because I do know that I actually do get some viewers that are in their younger years, teenagers and the like, because I don't tend to swear all that much on my videos or do a lot of inappropriate content outside of M-rated games, and I don't want somebody to accidentally click on something like that and get a virus or be led to a porn site or something like that because of me. So purely for that reason and that reason alone, I do have to go through your comments and approve them manually. I am so sorry. What I try to do to mitigate that, though, because I also do know I have quite a few people who watch my videos days or weeks after the fact. After about a week, I try to go through all of my videos that have been previously uploaded and set them all to an open comment section again, because like I said, the issue with the bots usually only happens within the first hour or so of the upload. After that time period is passed, those bots never pop up again. I think they're honestly programmed to specifically target the newest videos on YouTube, so once a certain time has passed, you don't really have to worry about those anymore. But due to the fact that it still happens, that's the only reason I haven't switched back. So I see all of your comments. I do. I promise. You guys know that if you do comment, that I do engage with them. Even if I don't respond, I always try to leave like a thumbs up and a favorite and whatnot. And trust me, those are almost always genuine, because I freaking love it when you guys comment on my videos. It always makes me feel the fuzzies inside, and I'm happy to see that you guys are enjoying something that I am making. So they're going to get approved. I think the only times I've ever deleted a comment that was made by an actual human was when they were spamming, which the only one that really comes to mind somewhat recently was, I want to say it was a Pokemon episode from years ago. And somebody went into the comment thread and just, I guess, decided to have like a conversation with themselves. They posted like 15 comments on one video, and a lot of it was just non sequitur stuff that had nothing to do with what was going on. And I think that's probably the only time in like recent memory I can remember actually manually deleting that comment, because I was just like, people don't need this entire essay below my video that makes absolutely no sense and just goes on for hours. It's like, it's incredibly distracting, but it's also just weird. And so I think that was the only time where I was like, no, this needs to go. I'm sorry. I know that you have the freedom, and I'm not trying to like censor you or anything, but this has no place on my video. I'm sorry. But I always try to approve the comments when I see them, again, as long as they're not spam. So All right, I think that's enough of all of that, 20 minutes into the video. Let's talk about a couple more things, a couple more past-related subjects before we get into the current and upcoming stuff. First things first, I am not doing a 2021 in review video this year, which is kind of a shocker, I know, because every single year I try to post something to that effect, whether it's a year in review, or it's my favorite games of the year list, or even just my game of the year, which I did, I think, for 2017. I just said, hey, Horizon Zero Dawn's my game of the year. I don't really have much else to talk about for this year, but I'm going to still make a video about it. I'm not even doing that this year, and there's a very good reason for that. In case you didn't know, 2021, I was pretty inactive, and a lot of this actually applied to my gaming habits last year. Now, don't get me wrong, I played a lot of video games last year. I completed something like 16 video games, and I played a decent amount of at least another 50. And all the ones I completed, I actually posted tweets to my Twitter. And I think the thread for that is pinned to my Twitter. I'm not 100% positive, but I think it's still pinned. And you can actually go through and read my mini reviews on all of the games I completed. Some of them might surprise you. Some of them aren't the most glowing in the world. There were a couple games I pushed through to finish and absolutely hated. Did a couple of tweets just to review them, and then posted like my thoughts and my score on each and every one of those. And then there was, again, all the games that I didn't complete but still played through, and spent a lot of time with that. It was my backlog project, although I didn't really get as far as I would have liked to. You know, touching 70 games isn't bad, but then when you look at it in the context of 70 out of 4,000, then suddenly it doesn't sound so impressive anymore. But spent a lot of time with that. Finished out some Let's Plays that lingered on from 2020, like Skyrim. And then, of course, Ghost of Tsushima was really the only thing I kept going last year, just so that my channel didn't die the death of the algorithm. Because when you don't upload for a while, YouTube is just like, oh, you're not active anymore. Kill it immediately. Remove it from people's subscribers' feeds. It's gone. And so that is pretty much the only reason I at least kept one Let's Play going last year and didn't just take a complete break from things. But all of those games that I played last year were older games. Almost none of them were brand new releases. I'm not kidding when I say that if you forced me to pick, of all of the 2021 releases, if you forced me to pick what my game of the year is based on what I actually played, it would be new Pokemon Snap. Now, that's not to say that that game is bad, because I actually did think it was pretty good, but it's not a masterpiece. It's not game of the year material. It's not a Horizon Zero Dawn, or a Doom 2016, or an Ori and the Will of the Wisps. It's not that good. It's great. I mean, it's one of the best Pokemon spin-offs I've ever played, for sure, but I didn't play Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I didn't play It Takes Two. I didn't play Resident Evil Village. I didn't play Tales of Arise. I fortunately avoided all of the awful first-person shooters that came out in November. I mean, I didn't play almost any of the big Hallmark releases from last year. And in fact, even right now, I'm just getting around to Pokemon. I almost said Brilliant Diamond. No, the other one, Shining Pearl. I'm just now getting around to that at the start of the new year. Yeah, I couldn't even touch upon that one, which so far I actually will say I'm pretty impressed with that remake, but that's for another video. New Pokemon Snap is really all I have to go off of. And I guess if I wasn't just focusing on games from last year, of all those games I did play, if I were to pick one of those for my game of the year, it would go to Subnautica, which I'm currently Let's Playing and already gushing about over there. So there's really no point in me making a 2021 in review anything. There's not really a whole lot to talk about. And there's also the fact that I've kind of been jaded with the game industry and don't really want to glorify them in any way either, because they are at an all-time low these days, and there's just a lot to talk about in that regard as well that could be saved for another video. So yeah, didn't really see the point in doing something like that. Speaking of other videos that are absent, what about and I'm putting that in massive air quotes, The Project? And you're probably going, what the heck is that? I've mentioned it a couple of times. I mentioned it in my anniversary video back over the summer, and I mentioned it on Twitter a bunch, even up to right before when it was supposed to release in November. I was still talking about it. Well, here's what happened. This was an incredibly, and still is, an incredibly involved project that has taken a lot out of me. So far, and actually I say so far, the script is done. The script is over 120 pages. The audio recording for this project is over 4 hours long, unedited, mind you, but still, over 4 hours long. The gameplay that I've recorded goes almost 12 hours deep for this. And I still haven't edited it because, like I said, it's not out right now. And if I'm being honest, I don't have any plans of putting it out anytime soon either. And there's a good reason for that. One, I wanted to release this at a time that, like, it's kind of free from interruption from any other series, or I'm not focused on other things. Two, I had to choose between this project or getting ready for the start of this year and all of these new videos that I have coming out right now, these daily uploads. And I felt like this was more important because this is the groove we're actually trying to settle into that I want to stick with for a long time. And the project is a one-time thing. It's going to happen and then it's gone, and then I probably won't do it again ever. Or if I do, it won't be for like another decade. It's something that's just so time-consuming that I had to decide and prioritize things differently. So I had to put it on the back burner. I had to just kind of drop it and go, look, you know what? I need to focus on this, and if I try to cram the project into that as well, I'm going to completely mess up my life socially. I'm not going to do anything in time for the holidays, and that's just, it's not worth that. It's not worth that. So I had to put the brakes on it. I had to stop for a while. I do intend to release it later. I also do need to make some adjustments to it as well, because there were aspects of the video that were very current time period relevant that obviously won't make any sense anymore if I'm to release this video later. So I got to make adjustments in the script, re-record those lines and re-edit things and stuff like that. And obviously this is all very confusing if I don't actually explain what this project is, but trust me, it'll make sense later. Basically, I just wanted to say that I had to focus on some other stuff and I had to just kind of drop it for a while, but I do intend to release it again later at some point. Maybe this year, but I'm not even going to make that promise. But it'll happen eventually. It would be very wasteful for me to have done all that I have done so far, though, and just cancel it completely. I'm not going to do that. It'll happen. It's just going to take a little bit longer, and I have other things to focus on at the moment. Okay, I think now that I've gotten all of that out of the way, we can finally start to talk about what's going on right now and what I have planned for the future. First things first, I kind of want to expand upon the contents of that 3-minute video I put out on New Year's Day where I kind of introduced the new series that I have planned, as well as all the other ancillary stuff. I just briefly summarized all of it, didn't go into a whole lot of detail, so I feel like now is a good time to go into that detail. So let's talk about the different series and what they mean, because they're basically just excuses for me to play other games, but for various different reasons and with various different angles. So the first series that I have started, well, I guess not first in terms of chronologically, but the first that I want to talk about is games I've always wanted to play. And when I put the thumbnail, it'll just be, I've always wanted to play insert game name here. This is obviously very self-explanatory. These are games that are sitting currently at the top of my backlog. They can be old, they can be new. These are games that I have always had an interest in playing and really want to play out on the channel in some way or another. But on top of that, this can also include games that maybe I don't necessarily want to play, like I know I'm going to like it or anything, but it can also include games that are just straight up classics, you know, games that are hallmarks of their genre that, you know, or these legendary titles that came out in the past that I just haven't gotten around to playing. Like a really good example of this, because I'm not a big RPG fan, is Chrono Trigger. I've never played Chrono Trigger. I honestly don't really have a huge vested interest in playing Chrono Trigger, aside from the fact that I would like to knock it off the list someday. I feel like, as somebody who is as in tune with the game industry or in tune with video games in general as I am, it would be a shame for me to have not at least played through Chrono Trigger once. And this is a great excuse for me to do that. Games that are bucket list games or games that are on my backlog and at the top of my backlog for one reason or another are going to be exclusively put into this series. Probably the most important thing about this series, though, is that outside of my Let's Plays, these series will probably be the longest in terms of time and episode length. They'll just go on the longest because I obviously have the most vested interest in seeing them all the way through than I will with the other games that I'm going to talk about. So do expect that when these happen. It's also not going to be the most infrequent series. The most infrequent series is actually the next one I want to talk about, which is Games I Remember. This is, again, very self-explanatory. These are games that I have memories of. These are games that I played in my childhood or my teenage years or even, you know, only a few years back, but haven't Let's Played it for one reason or another. Now, the reason why I haven't Let's Played these games usually boils down to the fact that either one, they're not worth Let's Playing because they're straight up bad or uninteresting, or two, because there just isn't a whole lot to say about them. If I can be completely candid with all of you, and we can all be honest, I think, with ourselves in this way, we all played bad video games growing up. We all did, and not just played bad video games, but enjoyed those bad video games because we were kids or teenagers and we were easy to please. We didn't see things with a critical eye, and we were just like, no, actually, I really liked Cold Stone Creamery Scoop It Up on the Wii. For instance, I don't know, maybe no one likes that game, but that was just an example I pulled out of my ass. Actually, a good example for me, and one that you guys will be seeing in the future, is called Greg Hastings Tournament Paintball Maxed, which is a paintball game, a paintball first-person shooter based on professional paintballing that came out on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. And you know what? I like that game. I legitimately enjoy it. I loved the heck out of it. And it was my introduction to the first-person shooter genre before I ever got into something like Medal of Honor or Call of Duty, or let alone Destiny many years later. It was my first experience with it because it was this really easy, accessible E10 rated first-person shooter, and guess what? It actually plays pretty well and is very interesting, and I can't wait to talk about it. But if I were to make a full Let's Play of it, my gosh, would it get dull and boring to watch by episode like 15. Like, no, it would just not work as a Let's Play, nor is it anything eye-catching enough that people are going to be more interested in it beyond like the first episode. And also, of course, it's probably hasn't aged well. There's that on top of it. But it's a good example of something that would appear in games I remember. It's just, I mean, anything's fair game as long as I have some sort of memory of it. I kind of did that throwaway joke in the New Year's video where I said, Scooby-Doo for the Nintendo 64. I played a Scooby-Doo game on a weekend when I was a kid and beat the entire thing. And I have these very strange memories of it, but I don't actually necessarily remember how the game even went. Beyond being like a very early, like young kids focused horror game. And it's like, again, another good example of something I could just throw on there and we could all laugh about it for a few episodes, and that's that. Like I said, this is probably going to be the series that you're going to see the least of, just because this is a very finite resource of games. Obviously, I can't dig into it forever. There's only so many games that I have memories of and have played that I haven't covered on the channel already. I mean, it's still a decently sized list, but it's not going to be one that's going to be this infinite well for me to pluck from for content forever like my other series are. Speaking of infinite well, let's talk about the third and last official series. I'll talk about a fourth one in a second. But officially, the third series is Let's Have a Look At, which you guys have already seen a little bit of. You saw that from Eastshade and you saw it from Sable. This is basically just everything else. Any game is fair game in here. If you guys put out a request, it's probably going to be a part of this series about 90% of the time. If it doesn't fit the other two series in terms of criteria, then it's probably going to go here. Very self-explanatory. My initial goal with something like this, though, is to just kind of check out two types of games. One, hidden gems that I don't necessarily have a vested interest in. Again, Eastshade and Sable were both kind of fit this, where they looked visually interesting and they happened to be on Xbox Game Pass, so I could just kind of throw them up there. But other than that, I didn't really know a whole lot about them, so I couldn't like make some sort of informed decision and be like, no, I really want to play these games. It was just kind of like, I guess let's try it, and that's why they fit into those series so well. But then the other types of games that I want to at least initially start with is the really weird niche oddball games out there. Things like LSD Dream Emulator and Tulip and Mr. Mosquito and Stretch Panic and Odama. You know, these really weird games that, you know, I just named all those, and there's a good chance some of you have never heard of any of those. You know, they're a perfect fit for a series like this because we can all just kind of get weirded out together and be like, oh, look at this game. Can you believe this is a video game? You know, stuff like that. I mean, that makes for entertaining content. But that's kind of where I want to start with something like this. But again, it's just totally fair game, basically open season with the Let's Have a Look At series. And the fourth unofficial series that so far I've only recorded a little bit of stuff for, and I'm not really going to title it anything because unofficially I'm calling it the not quite a Let's Play Let's Plays. Does that make sense? Maybe it doesn't. These are basically games that solely exist to tie up loose ends. There are games that I have Let's Played on the channel in the past that are part of a series, and I have not played every single game in those series. Now, there's obviously some exceptions with certain games that I've done, like Midnight Club 3, for instance. I've done that. No, I do not intend to Let's Play or look at Midnight Club 1, 2 in Los Angeles. I'm not going to do it. I'm not. And there's a good reason for that we'll talk about a little bit later, but it's not going to happen. But other series I have done, like the Tomb Raider reboot series, for instance. I've done Tomb Raider, the 2013 version, and Rise of the Tomb Raider, but I've never done Shadow of the Tomb Raider, so this would be a good chance for me to go into that game. I don't particularly like that game, which is why I'm not going to Let's Play it, but I would at least like to go all the way through it just to, again, tie up that loose end. Another good example of this is BioShock. I've done BioShock 1 and 2, but I have not done Infinite. And there will also be a couple of other exceptions I can throw in there as well. Games that, I guess the best way of putting it is they surprise me. Like, I go into the series not just kind of expecting it to be, oh, let's have a look at this one, but then it turns into something so much more. This would also be a good place to put that, assuming I don't just drop the thing altogether and be like, no, I'm going to make a Let's Play out of this later. Something like that. It's like I said, this is an unofficial 4th series. I'm not going to really title it anything, but these will also be included. But there's more than this, and we'll talk about that all in a second, but I want to make like my bare minimum clear, and this is going to apply to games that you guys request and things like that. My intention, and I unfortunately didn't follow this rule with Eastshade, but I've done with everything else so far. My intention is to, at minimum, no matter what game I go into, no matter what series it's a part of, I want to do at least an hour. 1 hour, or if I absolutely can't get a full hour out of it, at least 3 episodes worth, like 3 15-minute episodes worth of content out of a single game. That is the bare minimum that I am shooting for with any series that I start, regardless of what it is. So you request me to play Mass Effect 1, for instance, even if I absolutely hate it. I'm not saying I do. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical. If I absolutely hated it, I will at least make it through the first hour of the game before I call it completely quits. And even then, I'm willing to make exceptions in certain instances where people are like, no, please play more of this. I want to see more of this. Something like that. Like, you'll like it more when you get to a certain point, etc., etc. But that is my bare minimum goal that I'm shooting for with every single series. At least an hour, or in the most extreme cases, 3 episodes. However, there is one caveat to all of this, to all of the games that I will be playing on this channel. And I'm probably going to make a singular video that addresses this point specifically, just so that it's there as a reference so you guys know. But I do, and I honestly have for several years, but now I have a very specific set of personal boycotts set in stone in regards to what I'm covering on this channel. There are a couple of corporations out there that I am not willing to let their logo appear on my channel outside of very special circumstances. Basically, if a certain company, and I'm just going to pull one out of thin air here as an example. I don't know, Ubisoft, for example. Let's say that there is a game out there that they in any way can still make a profit off of. It's not in any way discontinued. It's still something that they are actively selling, whether it be through the Uplay or on any of the console stores or Steam or anything like that. As long as they can still make a dime off of that game, I will not cover it on this channel. I will not actively promote any games that publisher is responsible for unless it is effectively functionally abandonware. That is the only way I will cover it. Again, going back to Greg Hastings' Tournament Paintball, which I talked about earlier, that was published by Activision. That is another company that is on this boycott of mine, and it's also why I'm not going to be doing Spyro 3, at least for right now, or at least the Reignited trilogy for some time. But Greg Hastings' Tournament Paintball is completely delisted. It is abandonware. The only way you can get it is secondhand via eBay or used game stores or things like that. It is not actively sold or supported by Activision anymore. So therefore, I don't really have a huge problem with showing that game on my channel, as opposed to something like, I don't know, Call of Duty Vanguard. There is absolutely no way you will catch me dead trying to promote that game on here, or even Crash Team Racing, or again, like I said, Spyro 3 or Overwatch or any of that. That's not going to ever happen on this channel again. I just morally can't bring myself to do it with some of these corporations. And like I said, I'll make a singular video going into this and talking about why a little bit later. There is a small list of these. But again, I should mention that there is context in which I do think it is okay. Like, I think I said Ubisoft before, but then covering Peter Jackson's King Kong on the original Xbox, I don't think that's going to be doing any direct harm because, again, you can't really go buy that off of any sort of Ubisoft marketplace, so it's not really a big issue. That game is a licensed game, too. It's completely lost to the ether at this point, again, except for through secondhand means, so I don't really have a problem with covering that. But, of course, I should also address that there are games that I have Let's Played in the past. A very good example of this is Child of Light. I'm not going to go delete that Let's Play or anything, but I just want to say that, like, that's not going to happen again. Don't get me wrong, I love Child of Light. It's an absolutely amazing game and one of the few examples where Ubisoft was absolutely able to fund, not necessarily be responsible for, but at least fund a very, very good game. And it's a shame, it's truly a shame, because some of these companies are indeed attached to some excellent products out there, but I, at least for now, reserve the right to refuse any games that fall under those specific logos or labels, at least for the time being, unless circumstances change. So do, again, keep that in mind. Okay. Uncomfortable subject gone. Last thing I want to talk about, and I'm just going to list off a couple of other things that I wouldn't mind doing here in the future. Just ideas and stuff like that. So I have a whole myriad of other series that I wouldn't mind doing as well on top of all of this and trying to slot in there and fit in there. As far as actual playthroughs go, I have some other ideas. The first of which is ROM hacks, actually. I have a couple of Pokemon ROM hacks on a list, although I do this with total hesitancy and apprehension because I know ROM hacks are widely given much more of a pass than official Pokemon games, and I'm not that kind of person that's willing to give ROM hacks that much leeway just because they were made by a fan. Fan games, I think, are still subject to the exact same amount of scrutiny as any other video game, and if the quality is a lot lower, I'm still going to criticize it. So, therefore, ROM hacks tend to be something I try to stray away from at all costs. That said, there are a few ROM hacks out there that I am interested in checking out to some degree. I have a list of 4 of them as of right now, but if you have any others that you think are absolutely worth checking out, please do feel free to let me know. The ones I have on my list at the moment are Pokemon Glazed, Pokemon Flora Sky, Pokemon Crystal Clear, and Pokemon Gaia. These are the 4 that, upon doing some research into ROM hacks, were, at least for the most part, universally praised by everybody. Or if they weren't praised, they were at least the people who even didn't like them described them as very competent. So those are probably going to be the only ones that I'm willing to check out, at least for the right now. But again, if you have any suggestions, let me know. Of course, the concept of ROM hacks goes beyond just Pokemon. Another thing that I would like to check out is Banjo-Kazooie mods, specifically from the modder known as Kirko, who has made some really excellent Banjo-Kazooie mods over the past several years. Some that come to mind are Banjo-Kazooie Worlds Collide, Banjo-Kazooie Jiggies of Time, and Banjo-Kazooie Stay at Home, although I think that's an unofficial title, and I don't know if they already have or not, but at some point they were going to update it to a more official title later. It's kind of a smorgasbord of game mechanics from other popular Nintendo 64 and pop culture references that were kind of mishmashed into the Banjo-Kazooie formula, and just a really cool mod project. Again, Kirko does excellent work, but I'm also open to other mods and ROM hacks and things like that as well, but that was just an example of other things in that department. There's also game translations, a couple of Japanese exclusive ones that got English translations I'd be willing to check out. The one that I am most heavily leaning on doing first is Dobutsu no Mori Plus, which, if you don't know what that is Animal Crossing for the GameCube, but it is the Japanese version. Why that is significant is because the Animal Crossing that we got in North America and Europe on the GameCube kind of exists as an in-between of the Japanese editions of Animal Crossing. The original release of Animal Crossing was Animal Forest on the Nintendo 64, which is basically the same thing as the GameCube version, but with decidedly less content. It also ran a little bit worse, but it still actually doesn't run that badly, which unfortunately I cannot cover because that game has not received a full English translation. But then after Animal Forest, we got the North American and PAL release of Animal Crossing, also known as Animal Crossing Population Growing, which just, again, is the 64 version, but with significantly more content. But then, later on in the GameCube's life cycle, it got another update that was released, again, exclusively in Japan, and a lot of it was to tie into the e-reader functionality, and that was Dobutsu no Mori Plus, or Animal Forest Plus, which is the same thing as our North American and PAL release, but again, with added content. And I would like to check out that version specifically for the added content. And there is a fan, a modder out there who I don't know the name of, but obviously when I actually do this series, I will give them full credit, mention them, link to the translation, etc. But they were able to basically go in and fully translate that edition, and I've gotten it running on my homebrewed Wii, so I would like to be able to check that out as well. And just a quick disclaimer, when I say homebrewed Wii, yes, it is with my legit ripped copy of Animal Crossing that I actually own. Nintendo, so sue me, go shove it. Anyway, another thing that I would also like to check out is some mods of games. I have a couple on my Nintendo 64 that I would not mind checking out. These are like quality of life improvements that would actually make the game a more palatable experience to check out. A good example of this is Pokemon Stadium 2 for the Nintendo 64. For anyone familiar with the Pokemon Stadium games, they are specifically designed to encourage the player to transfer their Pokemon over from the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games respectively and use those teams within the game to work your way to the top of the Gym Leader Castle. And this is achieved by having rental Pokemon that you can select from, but it is obviously not necessarily encouraged because the movesets on those Pokemon are particularly awful, as well as their stats. There is a modder that went in and adjusted all of the movesets for all of the Pokemon in Pokemon Stadium 2 so that they were much more usable, much more viable, and much more competitively adept, so you can actually play through the game with rental Pokemon, so that would be something that would be worth checking out. There's also a Donkey Kong 64 mod, and these are obviously just examples I'm throwing out, but there's a Donkey Kong 64 mod that allows you to switch apes on the fly as opposed to having to backtrack to a barrel every single time, which is probably the biggest issue with an otherwise excellent game. Like, seriously, that is the only reason I have not covered Donkey Kong 64 on this channel so far, is due to that one glaring flaw that I'm pretty sure is universally hated upon by even the most ardent defenders of Donkey Kong 64. It's the one thing everybody complains about, is that that game would be almost perfect were it not for the fact that you have to backtrack it out of entire levels at times just to switch Kongs and go back to doing exactly what you were already doing a second ago. There is a mod that allows you to just hit a button, switch Kongs on the fly, and continue going as soon as you find something that pertains to another Kong. That actually might be a good way of checking out that game finally, and again, I would give full credit, link to the mod, etc., etc., etc. Again, just throwing out ideas. There's also challenge runs that I would not mind doing. I once upon a time was about to do I actually got about a third of the way through a quote-unquote 3 heart run of Okami, but I kind of half-assed it, didn't fully commit to it. I chickened out with the ink pots because I felt like that was going to be too tedious. I would like to try that again, but fully go as minimum on everything as possible except for the purse, because you literally can't advance in the game without increasing the size of your money capacity in that game. You straight up cannot go further without doing that. So that would be like the one exception, but I would actually like to do a challenge run like that again. Of course, there are other games that I have done previously on the channel that I would also like to do. I am very heavily considering doing a single life run of Ori and the Will of the Wisps as well, and trust me, that is an insane challenge that even to this day I have still been unable to complete on my own time, so it'd be very interesting to see if I can do that in a recording environment. And then there's also like different builds and different runs and alternate versions of other games that I have covered. A very good example of this, and really the only game I have in mind at the moment, is Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is a game that is centered around, at least in some parts of the game, mostly the major quest lines of the main game and then the subsequent expansions, they revolve around the choices that you make. When I did my Fallout 4 Let's Play, I went with the railroad in the main campaign. When I did Far Harbor, I went with the most universally, I guess, peaceful option where nobody got fully screwed over, but there were a couple of individuals that got, like, no faction got screwed over, but a couple of individuals were screwed over. And then in Nuka World, I ended up killing all of the raiders because I was not about to sacrifice everything that I worked for up to that point to a bunch of raiders that I had just met in this expansion. But there are alternate options and decisions that can be made that go counter to the decisions I made in that Let's Play, and that would be a great excuse for me to make, I don't know, a brawler-focused build that sympathizes with the Brotherhood of Steel and wants to kill all synths and wants to side with the Raiders in the end, just to kind of get the alternate perspective on things. And that series wouldn't go 120 episodes. It'd go like for 20, 30, maybe 40 episodes, while we just really focus on the aspects of it that we would be experiencing for the first time, as opposed to all of the little ancillary crap that I already did in my Let's Play. You know, something like that. That's another idea as well. Oh my gosh, I forgot how many freaking things I wrote down here. Another thing that I want to draw attention to is just kind of video game industry discourse. The video game industry is something that I have been following very closely and very heavily for many, many years now, and I wouldn't mind talking more about that. It's honestly a good excuse for me to bring back my Decree series, which I don't know if I like that format all that much anymore, and I would like to iterate it on it a little bit more, but maybe I could still call it the same thing and continue where we left off, you know, making these declarative statements and then making an entire video essay to back it up. A short video essay, mind, but a video essay nonetheless. But it would also be a good time to discuss like industry bullcrap and squeeze that in there as well. It's something else I could add into the mix with all of these videos. And then another thing I've actually been considering doing is a video, and I haven't done this in so many years, but going over how I make these videos again. Just going over the equipment that I have and the way that my setup works, and, you know, what editing software I use, which a lot of that honestly hasn't changed all that much, but just going how I very simply make my videos with the budget that I have, and in a way that's, yeah, it's not like the cheapest way of making videos, but it's also not, you know, you're not having to drop several $1,000s into recording equipment and microphones and stuff like that to make something like this work. I would say my budget sits more around the $300 to $500 range as opposed to, you know, several grand. So go over that and go into all the nitty gritty and the way that my setup works. And that would be a nice video to put out there to, you know, another how to make Let's Plays video essentially, because when I did that, it actually worked out really well, but that video is so hopelessly out of date that I'm pretty sure YouTube even looked differently back when I made that video. It's, yeah, in fact, I honestly, I might have actually put that on unlisted because the video has no point to it anymore. And then the last thing I wanted to discuss also is I would like to make content in regards to Destiny again, although with the understanding that I cannot Let's Play Destiny anymore due to the fact that the way Destiny works now, the way that Bungie has decided to switch and change up their content model, it's impossible for me to Let's Play it. It's also just not a mission focused game anymore. There isn't a going from mission to mission structure like there was with all of Destiny 1 and the first couple years of Destiny 2. Campaigns just kind of don't really work out that way, and it's much more quest and progression focused now, as well as like it has a lot of life service engagement where you're experiencing things week to week as opposed to mission to mission. So Let's Playing it's not really even feasible anymore. In fact, I have completely unlisted all of my Destiny 2 videos, or at least all of my Destiny 2 Let's Play videos on the channel, because those have no more relevance to them anymore. They're completely gone. I might bring back at least the Red War campaign at some point just for the sake of preservation now that that's gone. But as of right now, those are all unlisted. Only the Destiny 1 videos are still public and available to see just through to the end of that game. But I would like to make more Destiny content again, in so much as kind of giving people the lowdown on Destiny, because Destiny is in a wonderful state. It's been such a good game for the past couple of years, and I've been really engaged with it, but I can fully admit, and I feel like anybody who's currently playing Destiny, and honestly, this doesn't even just apply to Destiny, this is just a live service problem in general. Once these games get to a certain point in their lifespan, it's very, very hard to get people on board and jumping onto a game so late in its life cycle. Newbies just have a really hard time grasping onto the concept and, you know, knowing what to do. I mean, Warframe has the same issue. I've even heard that Final Fantasy XIV does, despite how engaging that game is and how much people love that game. Live services have a new player problem, and Destiny is absolutely no exception. It's very confusing, and Bungie hasn't done it any favors, but I think once the next expansion comes out in February, and once that's all kind of settled in and we've gotten to that content cycle, and I have an understanding of the way that things are working as of the moment that expansion comes out, I think I might sit down and, you know, go over the new player experience and explain it to people and show you, this is why Destiny's good. This is why you should play it. This is how you get started. This is what you need to know about it. You know, just a little series going into all of those details, because I still maintain that Destiny is an absolutely excellent game. And if you want to play a first-person shooter, it's about as good as things get these days. It's so freaking fantastic, and I love everything. Well, not everything. Almost everything about it. Obviously, I have my gripes here and there, but with a game like this and with as much investment as I have in it, how could you not, you know? I think that's it. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else on this list that I need to go over. Just kind of firing off ideas at this point, but if you have somehow made it this far into this video and you are still listening, thank you all so very much for watching. I know we're basically approaching an hour on this. Like I said, if I make more videos like this, they won't be near this long, I promise. This is a one-time thing where I just get a lot of information off my chest and go into the nitty-gritty of a lot of different things. And yeah, I shouldn't have to do this again. We'll be able to talk about other stuff, and these videos will be a little bit more simple in future. But if you've made it this far, thank you. I really do appreciate it. I always appreciate it when you watch my content. Anybody that sticks around or is actually engaging with stuff, you are the best. I mean that with total sincerity. I don't mean to be dismissive at all. It's totally true. You are the best, and I really appreciate it. Thank you all, or even if it's just one of you, thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.